During World War II, 50 million men registered for the draft, and 10 million of them were inducted into the military. This massive change had rippling effects on how different groups of people conceptualized what it meant to be American, and even what it meant to be a man. Of these men, Mexican Americans were amongst the highest ratios of buck privates serving in combat. The experience of being in a predominantly male combat space had a long lasting impact on the life of Raul Jose Leal and his son Raul Jose Leal Jr., both Mexican American veterans. Leal Jr. served during the Korean War. He grew up in southern Texas in a pluralistic Hispanic family. This upbringing strongly influenced Leal's views about the armed forces and gender roles in society. Much like the relationships of many other Hispanic American men, Leal's relationships are influenced by machismo. According to a CSU Los Angeles study, machismo instructs men to behave valiantly to protect the honor and welfare of their families. A man with machismo can also refer to someone who can hold his alcohol. The prevalence and acceptance of this culture and these gender norms tend to allow Hispanic men, like Leal Sr., to use alcohol to cope with issues such as PTSD. When Leal Jr. had a conversation with his father about joining the Navy, his father said, "Well, it's not fun out there." In response, Leal said to his father, "Well, I'll find out for myself." This conversation demonstrates Leal's perception of himself as a man with machismo. He framed his enlisting to his father as a move he was making as a man who had to take on large risks as a part of his role in society. In the interview, Leal asserted that he had sacrificed his high school education to make sure that his brothers and sisters would not have to do the same. He said, "I'm the eldest in the family, so I said, no, if I'm going to sacrifice, everybody else is going to finish below me." This shows that he saw himself performing his perceived masculine role of leaving the family and fighting to protect them and provide for them. Leal believed that women had a different role to play in the armed forces. He said, "We needn't have gotten them involved in that's my way of thinking, in the actual combat." This demonstrates his ingrained notion that dangerous physical activities such as going into war were specifically masculine. As the draft only recruited men, a clear majority of the people he interacted with during his service were men. This environment reinforced his gendered notions. The gender norms he adhered to had distinct ramifications on the lives of his family members. All the men in his immediate family entered the armed forces, but none of the women did. During his time in the Navy, Leal faced a lot of discrimination. He spoke of how members of his company would attack his ethnicity with slurs. He, like many Mexican Americans who served with and before him, fought and risked his life for the United States, but was regularly denied service by Anglo-Americans in certain establishments. Despite this, Leal remained nationalistic and embodied a narrative of how American freedoms were unlike the freedoms of any other countries. He brings up an example of Mexican laws to demonstrate his loyalty to America, saying that in the US, you are free to fly the flag of any nation, but in Mexico, you are not free to fly the American flag. Through this, he distances himself from the discrimination he received as a result of being perceived as a Mexican.
And nothing more.
While he did specifically use an example of Mexican laws to distance himself from his Mexican identity, he did genuinely believe that fighting abroad was necessary to protect the American freedoms that he championed and held dear. He said, "Yeah, it's very sad. That's how I feel about it. This is what it takes to defend the freedoms that we enjoy, unfortunately." He further proved his belief in this ideology by supporting his male family members when they chose to join the armed forces. Leal's life as a veteran seems to be influenced by three key components: pluralistic Mexican cultural values, machismo, and a reaction to racial discrimination in the army. He viewed men and women as people suited to specific societal roles, and believed that it is necessary for men to make large sacrifices for the broader community. His belief in American freedoms stayed strong, regardless of the discrimination he experienced. He championed the need to go abroad and to fight to protect American freedoms, even though he returned to a country where he was refused service due to his race. Sometimes, even when he was wearing his Navy uniform.